Well, the British royals have posed for a new formal photograph. Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, as it always is,
Yes.
you just can't help but notice her. But take a close look at her tiara.
Yeah.
That's one of Princess Diana's favorites. It's actually the one that she wore.
One tiara carries the memory of Princess Diana, the elegance of royal history, and the power to spark endless speculation. When Catherine, Princess of Wales, wears the Cambridge lover's knot tiara, the symbolism is unmistakable. But one question continues to intrigue royal watchers. Why has Queen Camilla never worn it? The answer reveals far more than jewelry. The tiara that became Diana's crown. Among the many treasures inside the British royal jewelry collection, few pieces carry the emotional and historical weight of the Cambridge lover's knot tiara. At first glance, it appears simply as a dazzling piece of royal jewelry, a graceful arrangement of diamonds and pearls designed to sparkle under the lights of state banquets and diplomatic receptions. Yet the true significance of this tiara goes far beyond its beauty. For millions of people around the world, the piece is forever linked to one woman, Princess Diana. The origins of the tiara stretch back more than a century. In 1913, Queen Mary commissioned the piece from the renowned jewelry house Garrard. Her intention was to recreate an earlier design worn by her grandmother, Princess Augusta, the Duchess of Cambridge. That original design dated back to the early 19th century and was admired for its distinctive pattern of diamond arches adorned with hanging pearls. Queen Mary's version elevated the design into something even more remarkable. The tiara features 19 diamond arches, each suspending a teardrop-shaped pearl that sways gently with movement. Crafted from diamonds set in both silver and gold, the piece reflects light from every angle, giving it a shimmering quality that photographers have long adored. Experts estimate its financial value at around $2.7 million, though within royal history its symbolic worth is far greater. For decades, the tiara remained part of the royal jewelry collection, worn occasionally by Queen Mary and later inherited by Queen Elizabeth II. During the early years of Elizabeth's reign in the 1950s, the tiara appeared at several formal occasions before gradually disappearing from frequent use. It was elegant, historic, but not yet iconic. Everything changed in 1981. When Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles and became the Princess of Wales, Queen Elizabeth II loaned her the Cambridge lover's knot tiara as part of the royal jewelry tradition. From that moment forward, Diana transformed the piece into something unforgettable. She wore it everywhere. State banquets at Buckingham Palace, diplomatic receptions with foreign leaders, royal tours abroad, official photographs that would soon circulate across newspapers and magazines around the world. The tiara quickly became one of Diana's signature symbols. The pearls framed her face in a way that photographers found irresistible. Combined with her distinctive hairstyle and elegant gowns, the tiara created an image that defined royal glamour throughout the 1980s and early 1990s. Diana herself once admitted that the tiara could be uncomfortable. In interviews, she mentioned that its weight sometimes gave her headaches during long formal events. Yet despite the discomfort, she continued wearing it frequently because it had become so strongly associated with her public image. By the time the world began recognizing Diana as the people's princess, the Cambridge lover's knot tiara had effectively become part of her identity. It symbolized grace, confidence, royal elegance, and perhaps most importantly, it represented a modern vision of monarchy that felt emotionally connected to the public. Then came the tragedy of 1997. When Diana died in the car accident in Paris, the royal family entered one of the most difficult moments in its modern history. Public grief spread across Britain and far beyond, with millions mourning the loss of a woman who had transformed the image of the monarchy. After her death, the tiara quietly returned to the royal vault. And for many years, it remained there. Nearly 2 decades passed without the lovers not appearing at any major royal event. It was almost as though the palace itself recognized that the piece had become too closely tied to Diana's memory for anyone else to wear it immediately. The absence only deepened its mystique. People remembered the photographs, the elegance, the unmistakable connection between the tiara and the princess who had made it famous. Then, in 2015, something changed. At the annual diplomatic reception held at Buckingham Palace, Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, as she was known at the time, appeared wearing the Cambridge lover's knot tiara for the first time. The moment immediately captured global attention. Observers recognized the symbolism instantly. Catherine had not simply chosen a beautiful tiara. She had chosen the tiara most closely associated with Princess Diana. For many royal watchers, the decision represented something significant. Catherine was embracing her role as the new Princess of Wales and acknowledging the legacy of the woman who held that title before her. Since that debut, Catherine has continued to wear the lover's knot tiara at some of the most important events in royal life. State banquets, diplomatic receptions, and major ceremonial occasions have all seen the piece reappear on the international stage. Each time she wears it, comparisons inevitably arise. Not because Catherine is trying to recreate Diana's image, but because the tiara itself carries such powerful historical meaning. Interestingly, Catherine has also shown that she is not confined by that legacy. While the lover's knot remains one of her most recognizable pieces, she has also worn other historic tiaras from the royal collection, demonstrating her ability to balance tradition with her own evolving identity. Still, the connection remains undeniable. Whenever the lover's knot appears, the memory of Princess Diana quietly returns with it. But this raises an intriguing question that royal observers often ask. If the tiara belongs to the royal collection and Queen Camilla now has access to that collection as queen consort, why has she never worn the piece? The answer reveals something fascinating about the unwritten rules that govern royal jewels, and how symbols inside the monarchy can carry emotional meaning far beyond their material value. The real rules behind royal tiaras. When people see royal women wearing spectacular tiaras at state banquets or diplomatic receptions, it is easy to imagine that these jewels function like personal possessions, family treasures passed freely between relatives, chosen at will depending on taste or preference. The reality inside the British monarchy is far more structured. Royal tiaras are governed by a complex system of ownership, tradition, and protocol that has developed over centuries. These pieces are not simply accessories. They are historical artifacts tied to the institution of the crown itself, and the way they are worn often reflects deeper symbolic meanings within the royal family. To understand why the Cambridge lover's knot tiara appears on Catherine but not on Queen Camilla, it is first necessary to understand how royal jewelry actually works. Within the British royal collection, tiaras generally fall into three different categories. The first category includes pieces that belong to the crown estate. These jewels are considered institutional property connected to the monarchy rather than to any individual person. They pass automatically from one monarch to the next and are preserved as part of the crown's historical legacy. The second category includes pieces that are personal property owned outright by individual members of the royal family. These items can be inherited privately, gifted, or passed through personal wills. The third category, the most interesting one when it comes to tiaras, is the group of jewels personally owned by the reigning monarch but loaned to other royal women for official use. Many of the most famous tiaras worn at state events fall into this final category. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara belongs here. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, the tiara formed part of her personal jewelry collection. That meant she retained authority over which members of the royal family could borrow it for official occasions. When she passed away in 2022, ownership transferred to the new monarch, King Charles III. In practical terms, this means that Charles now holds final authority over who may borrow the tiara. However, the decision-making process is rarely as rigid as it might appear. Royal women typically develop a relationship with particular tiaras over time. Certain pieces become associated with specific individuals because they suit their style, their role within the monarchy, or the symbolic message they send. For example, Queen Camilla is strongly associated with the Greville tiara, a distinctive honeycomb-patterned diamond piece that once belonged to Dame Margaret Greville and was later inherited by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Camilla has worn it at several major state events, and it has gradually become one of her signature pieces. Similarly, Catherine has developed a clear connection with the Cambridge lover's knot tiara. Since first wearing it in 2015, she has chosen the piece repeatedly for high-profile diplomatic receptions and state banquets. Each appearance reinforces the association between Catherine and the tiara, much as Princess Diana did decades earlier. This pattern of association is extremely important in royal symbolism. Tiaras communicate messages without words. When a royal woman consistently wears a particular piece, the public begins linking her identity with that jewel. Over time, the tiara becomes part of her visual signature. That is exactly what happened with Diana. And now, in many ways, the same process is happening with Catherine. One common misconception is that another royal family member, such as Princess Anne, could personally decide who may or may not wear a specific tiara. In reality, Anne holds no authority over the royal jewelry vault. Even highly respected senior royals do not control those decisions. Only the monarch has formal authority over jewels belonging to the royal collection. However, royal culture operates through more than written rules. It also follows a set of unspoken understandings. Members of the royal family are deeply aware that certain pieces of jewelry carry strong emotional associations with particular individuals. Wearing those pieces without sensitivity to that history could easily provoke public criticism or create uncomfortable comparisons. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara is one of the clearest examples of this phenomenon. Because Diana wore the piece so frequently during her lifetime, the public instinctively connects it with her memory. Photographs of Diana wearing the tiara remain some of the most recognizable images in royal history. For Queen Camilla, that connection creates a delicate situation. Although she technically has access to the entire royal jewelry collection as queen consort, wearing Diana's most iconic tiara could easily trigger negative public reactions. Many people still associate Camilla's early relationship with Charles with the difficult final years of Diana's marriage. Even decades later, that history remains emotionally powerful for many observers. Camilla herself appears fully aware of this sensitivity. Rather than risking controversy by wearing the lover's knot tiara, she has consistently chosen other pieces from the royal collection that carry less emotionally charged symbolism. This approach allows her to establish her own identity within royal imagery without stepping into territory closely associated with Diana. In fact, Camilla's selection of tiaras demonstrates how carefully royal women navigate these unspoken rules. She has worn the Delhi Durbar tiara, originally created for Queen Mary in 1911, as well as the Belgian sapphire tiara, which features deep blue gemstones surrounded by diamonds. Each piece helps create a visual identity distinct from that of Diana or Catherine. This strategy is not imposed by palace orders. It reflects something more subtle, an understanding of how symbols operate within the monarchy. Every royal appearance is photographed, analyzed, and discussed by millions of people around the world. Jewelry choices, clothing, and ceremonial details all contribute to the broader narrative of royal identity. Choosing the right tiara, therefore, becomes part of a larger communication strategy. For Catherine, wearing the lover's knot acknowledges Diana's legacy while reinforcing her own role as the current Princess of Wales. For Camilla, avoiding the tiara demonstrates awareness of public sentiment and respect for a legacy that still resonates deeply with many people. In other words, the decision is not about refusal. It is about judgment. And that judgment reflects the monarchy's long experience with balancing tradition, symbolism, and public perception. Yet beyond these formal and informal rules lies another fascinating layer of royal tradition. Because within the world of royal jewels, certain pieces carry meanings that go far beyond ownership or aesthetics. They represent lineage, continuity, and the quiet passing of legacy from one generation of royal women to the next. Catherine and the return of Diana's most famous tiara. When the Cambridge lover's knot tiara disappeared into the royal vault after Princess Diana's death in 1997, few people expected it would remain unseen for nearly 2 decades. The tiara had become so closely linked to Diana's image that the palace appeared reluctant to place it on another royal head too soon. Photographs of Diana wearing the tiara had become part of global memory. State banquets, royal tours, diplomatic receptions. Each time she wore it, the tiara framed the image of a princess who had redefined the emotional connection between the monarchy and the public. The pearl drop swayed gently as she moved, catching light from every camera flash, and over time the piece became inseparable from the story of Diana herself. After her death, the palace understood that replacing that image would require time. Years passed. The tiara remained hidden from public view. During that period, other members of the royal family wore different pieces from the collection, while the lover's knot quietly remained inside the royal jewelry vault. Then, in December 2015, something remarkable happened. At the annual diplomatic reception held at Buckingham Palace, one of the most formal events in the royal calendar, Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, appeared wearing the Cambridge lover's knot tiara for the first time. The moment instantly captured attention. Royal watchers recognized the symbolism immediately. Catherine had not simply selected a beautiful tiara. She had chosen the very piece that the world associated most strongly with Diana. The visual parallel was impossible to ignore. Yet the significance of that moment went deeper than resemblance. Catherine's appearance marked the beginning of a new chapter in the story of the tiara. Rather than attempting to recreate Diana's image, she wore the piece in a way that acknowledged the past while quietly establishing her own place within royal tradition. Since that evening in 2015, Catherine has continued to wear the lover's knot tiara at some of the most important events of royal life. She wore it at the Spanish state banquet in 2017, where she appeared in a flowing pink gown and the familiar cascade of pearl drops that once framed Diana's portraits. The tiara returned again at several diplomatic receptions hosted at Buckingham Palace, each appearance reinforcing the connection between Catherine and the historic jewel. Each time the tiara appeared, comparisons to Diana naturally followed. But something interesting began happening. Gradually, the tiara began to feel less like a relic of the past and more like a living part of Catherine's own royal identity. The transformation became especially visible during the years following the global pandemic. As royal engagements slowly returned to full scale, Catherine continued balancing her responsibilities as Princess of Wales while also facing significant personal challenges. In early 2024, news of her cancer diagnosis shocked the public and temporarily pulled her away from many public appearances. For months, speculation surrounded her health and future role within the monarchy. When she eventually returned to the public stage, every appearance carried new emotional weight. That return reached a powerful moment in July 2025 during a state banquet at Windsor Castle honoring the French president. Catherine arrived wearing a deep crimson gown accompanied by the Cambridge lover's knot tiara, marking the first time she had worn the piece since her health struggle. The response was immediate. Photographs of the event spread rapidly across international media, with many commentators describing the moment as symbolic of resilience and continuity. The tiara that once belonged to Diana was now framing a princess who had faced her own challenges while continuing her royal responsibilities. Later that year, Catherine wore the tiara again during another state banquet honoring the President of the United States. Once again, the familiar diamonds and pearls drew attention not only because of their beauty but because of what they represented. A link between generations. A reminder that royal heirlooms do not simply preserve history, they carry it forward. Interestingly, Catherine has also demonstrated that she does not rely exclusively on Diana's tiara to define her royal identity. At the German state banquet in December 2025, she appeared wearing the Queen Victoria Oriental Circlet, a ruby and diamond tiara rarely seen in recent decades. The choice surprised many observers. The Oriental Circlet had once been a favorite of the Queen Mother and had not appeared publicly for nearly 20 years. By selecting it, Catherine demonstrated that she is not confined by the symbolism of Diana's jewelry alone. Instead, she is gradually building her own relationship with the broader royal collection. This balance is important. If Catherine relied solely on Diana's tiara, critics might accuse her of borrowing too heavily from the past. By alternating between historic pieces connected to other royal women, she signals that her role within the monarchy extends beyond a single legacy. Yet the lover's knot remains special. It carries the emotional weight of Diana's story while also highlighting Catherine's position as the modern Princess of Wales. Each time the tiara appears, it quietly reminds the public that the monarchy evolves through continuity rather than replacement. Diana's memory remains powerful, but it now shares space with a new royal figure shaping the future of the institution. And this raises the question that fascinates many royal observers. If Catherine has become the modern face of Diana's most famous tiara, why has Queen Camilla, who now holds the title of Queen Consort, never chosen to wear it? The answer reveals something deeply revealing about how the monarchy balances history, symbolism, and public sentiment in ways that no official rulebook could ever fully explain. Why Camilla never reached for Diana's tiara? Inside the world of royal symbolism, some choices carry far more meaning than they appear to at first glance. A tiara is not simply a piece of jewelry. Within the monarchy, it is a message, one that can quietly communicate legacy, identity, and even emotional sensitivity to the public watching from outside palace walls. And few pieces carry more emotional symbolism than the Cambridge lover's knot tiara. Because while it technically belongs to the royal collection and is available for use by senior royal women, its deeper meaning has always been tied to Princess Diana. For millions of people, the image of Diana wearing the lover's knot during state banquets and royal tours remains unforgettable. The tiara became part of her visual identity. That connection did not disappear when Diana died. If anything, it grew stronger. Every photograph, documentary, and retrospective about Diana continues to feature the tiara prominently. It represents not only royal elegance but also a moment in history when Diana's presence transformed the monarchy's relationship with the public. And that is precisely why Queen Camilla has never worn it. When Camilla officially became Queen Consort following King Charles III's accession in 2022, she gained access to the royal jewelry collection, one of the most remarkable assemblages of historic gems in the world. Technically speaking, there is no formal rule preventing her from wearing the Cambridge lover's knot tiara. The monarch controls access to the collection, and King Charles could easily approve such a choice if he wished. Yet in the years since becoming queen, Camilla has consistently chosen other tiaras for state occasions. This decision appears to be deliberate. Camilla understands better than almost anyone how sensitive the legacy of Princess Diana remains within public memory. For decades, the relationship between Charles and Camilla was viewed through the lens of the painful collapse of Charles's marriage to Diana. Although public opinion toward Camilla has softened significantly over time, the emotional resonance of Diana's story has never completely faded. If Camilla were to wear the tiara most closely associated with Diana, it could easily provoke criticism or reopen old debates about that history. Royal advisors are deeply aware of how quickly such symbolism can become controversial. Photographs of Camilla wearing Diana's signature tiara would inevitably trigger comparisons, headlines, and commentary across international media. The narrative would shift away from the occasion itself and toward questions about legacy and rivalry. In royal strategy, avoiding unnecessary controversy is often the wisest path. By choosing other tiaras instead, Camilla sidesteps that potential storm entirely. Over the years she has developed a distinct identity through different pieces of royal jewelry. One of the tiaras most strongly associated with her is the Greville tiara, a striking honeycomb pattern design originally belonging to Dame Margaret Greville. The piece was inherited by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and later became part of the royal collection available to senior royal women. Camilla has worn the Greville tiara at several important events, gradually establishing it as her own visual signature. She has also worn the Delhi Durbar tiara, originally created for Queen Mary for the Delhi Durbar ceremony in 1911. The tiara's bold architectural design makes it one of the most distinctive pieces in the royal vault. Another favorite has been the Belgian sapphire tiara, which features deep blue gemstones surrounded by brilliant diamonds. The sapphire stones complement Camilla's preference for understated but elegant royal styling. By consistently selecting these pieces, Camilla has quietly built a separate identity within the royal jewelry tradition. This approach allows her to occupy her role as queen without stepping directly into territory that still belongs emotionally to Diana. Royal historians often point out that such decisions reflect the monarchy's long-standing awareness of symbolism. Even when no formal rule exists, the royal family tends to follow a kind of unwritten etiquette regarding objects connected to powerful historical figures. Some items simply carry too much emotional weight to be reassigned casually. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara falls squarely into that category. For Catherine, wearing the tiara acknowledges Diana's legacy while continuing the story of the Princess of Wales. The symbolism works because Catherine occupies the same title that Diana once held. For Camilla, the meaning would be entirely different. Rather than representing continuity, it might appear to some observers as a challenge to Diana's memory, a perception that Camilla has spent years carefully avoiding. The monarchy understands that public perception can shape the institution's stability. Small choices, such as which tiara a royal woman selects for a state banquet, can influence how millions of people interpret the actions of the royal family. Camilla's decision to avoid the lover's knot therefore reflects a deeper awareness of royal storytelling. She does not need that tiara to establish her place within the monarchy. Her role as queen already carries its own symbolism. Meanwhile, the lover's knot continues its journey through royal history with Catherine, who now represents the next generation of royal leadership. In this way, the tiara serves as a bridge between two eras. Diana's memory remains alive in its design. Catherine's presence carries it into the future. And Camilla, by choosing different jewels, quietly allows that legacy to remain undisturbed. But behind these careful choices lies another fascinating element of royal tradition. Because in the world of palace symbolism, certain objects are not simply worn, they are protected by those who understand their deeper meaning. And among the senior members of the royal family, few people are more protective of royal tradition than Princess Anne. Princess and Legacy, and the symbolism behind royal jewels. Inside the British monarchy, objects often carry meanings that go far beyond their material value. Castles represent history, titles represent authority, and jewels, especially tiaras, often represent legacy. For the public, these pieces of jewelry might appear as dazzling accessories worn during glamorous events. But within the royal family, they are reminders of lineage and continuity, connecting generations of royal women across centuries. Few people inside the monarchy understand that symbolism better than Princess Anne, and has spent her entire life inside the machinery of royal tradition. As the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, she grew up observing how the monarchy protects its heritage not only through official ceremonies but also through objects that carry emotional meaning. Throughout her decades of royal service, and has built a reputation for being one of the institution's strongest guardians of tradition. She rarely seeks public attention, yet her influence inside the royal household is widely respected. Palace staff often describe her as someone who understands how the monarchy survives, through discipline, continuity, and careful respect for the past. And that perspective naturally extends to royal heirlooms. For Anne, items like the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara are not simply decorative pieces. They are symbols of the monarchy's history and of the individuals who helped shape it. Princess Diana was one of those individuals. Although Anne and Diana did not always share a close personal relationship during the difficult years of Diana's marriage to Prince Charles, Anne nevertheless understood the extraordinary impact Diana had on the monarchy's public image. Diana changed how people viewed the royal family. She brought emotion, empathy, and a new sense of accessibility to an institution that had often appeared distant to the public. Through her charity work and public presence, she created a bond with ordinary people that few royal figures had achieved before. The Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara became part of that story. Whenever Diana wore it, the image resonated around the world. The pearls and diamonds framed a face that had become one of the most recognizable in modern history. For Anne, preserving the meaning of such symbols is essential. The monarchy cannot simply discard the emotional legacy of figures like Diana. Instead, it must integrate that legacy into the continuing story of the institution. That is exactly what has happened with Catherine. As Princess of Wales, Catherine now holds the same title Diana once carried. She also occupies the role of supporting the future king, Prince William, whose reign will eventually shape the monarchy's next chapter. When Catherine wears the Lover's Knot tiara, the symbolism feels natural. The piece links two generations of princesses of Wales. Diana's legacy remains visible. Catherine's future leadership becomes part of that legacy. For many royal observers, this continuity represents one of the monarchy's greatest strengths. Rather than erasing the past, the institution allows its symbols to evolve gradually as new figures step forward, and has always supported this approach. While she rarely comments publicly on matters related to royal jewelry or ceremonial symbolism, those familiar with palace traditions often note that and prefers decisions that reinforce continuity rather than create confusion about legacy. Allowing Catherine to become closely associated with Diana's most famous tiara accomplishes exactly that. It preserves the emotional connection the public still feels toward Diana while also strengthening Catherine's role as the modern Princess of Wales. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla continues building her own royal identity through different symbols. By wearing other historic tiaras, such as the Greville tiara, the Delhi Durbar tiara, and the Belgian sapphire tiara, Camilla has gradually established a visual identity distinct from Diana's legacy. This balance reflects the monarchy's careful understanding of symbolism. Each royal woman represents a different chapter of the institution's story. Diana remains the beloved figure who reshaped the monarchy's emotional connection with the public. Camilla represents the queen who supported Charles through decades of public service and eventually stood beside him as he became king. Catherine represents the future, an evolving monarchy preparing for the next generation of leadership. And Princess Anne, standing slightly outside the spotlight, continues fulfilling the role she has carried for decades, protecting the traditions that allow those transitions to happen smoothly. In this sense, the journey of a single tiara tells a much larger story. It is a story about memory, respect, and the quiet ways in which royal history continues shaping the present. Because inside the monarchy, symbols matter. They remind the public that the crown is not only about power or ceremony, it is about continuity across generations. And sometimes, The most meaningful transitions happen not through official announcements, but through the quiet reappearance of a historic jewel worn by the next royal figure ready to carry the story forward. What do you think about the symbolism behind Diana's famous tiara? Do you believe it was the right choice for Catherine, Princess of Wales, to become the modern face of the Cambridge lovers' not tiara? Or should historic royal jewels remain tied to the figures who made them famous? Royal traditions often reveal fascinating stories about how the monarchy evolves from one generation to the next. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden meanings, history, and royal traditions behind the British monarchy, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next royal story.